Okay, so if you're anything like me, you sometimes avoid certain stories, like certain headlines, like certain trends in things that are being discussed, either because you know it's awful and you know it's bad, and it just gives you anxiety, you can't approach it, or like it's just something complicated about it that you just don't have the like mental energy to wrap your head around. And sometimes that's even worse, right? Like the more important a story is, sometimes the more I avoid it. And I like try to intentionally stop myself from doing that. Well, I bring this up because I think that like the Trump coin, the meme coin situation, and Trump and his cryptocurrency in general, like with the World Liberty Financial stuff and like the Trump NFTs and all that stuff. I think it might be one of those stories that like some people are trying to avoid. And I respect that because cryptocurrency is complicated. Not everyone understands it. Not everyone spent the time trying to understand it. Not everyone wants to understand it. All valid. And it's a very complicated story in and of itself, even without like the complications of cryptocurrency itself. The story itself is complicated. But I have to give you the advice that you pay attention to it. And if you really just want to understand it at like the highest level with like all the pertinent details, told really well and told comprehensively, there is a new episode of the Ezra Klein show that came out yesterday, called The Growing Scandal of $Trump. And it is spectacular. I know a lot of people don't like the New York Times and don't like Ezra Klein, and that's fine. But I'm telling you right now, it's like the most authoritative and succinct and detailed, without being too detailed, telling of everything going on with Donald Trump and the Trump family as it relates to cryptocurrency, and kind of like gives you the nice timeline. It's about an hour-long episode. It gives you like the nice timeline of like how Donald Trump evolved from being very anti-crypto to being like the top dog of crypto grifters in the country. Just the breadth of the corruption and bribery that's going on around World Liberty Financial, which Donald Trump is a part of, and the influences and the people that we know of that are spending tens and tens of millions of dollars that's going directly into Donald Trump's pocket in order to get access to him and, you know, get their criminal charges dropped, to get him to support legislation that they like, you know, all the things that you bribe a politician for. And I said something about this in a video just kind of recently, but this whole situation is without a doubt, like hands down, not even close, the biggest corruption and bribery scandal, except for that it's nothing's happening from it. I hesitate to say scandal, but like the biggest example of bribery and corruption and influence peddling that has ever happened in the United States history, and it's like not even close. Like that statement is like, it adds zeros onto anything that anyone else has ever done. I like the Trump family has increased their net worth by billions of dollars since he took office. Insane. And the people who are purchasing these coins, the amount of money that goes to Donald Trump, like, first of all, these coins can't be sold. They can't be resold. So when you buy them, you can't resell them. There's no resale value to them at all. So it's not really like a securities that like you would trade and make profit like a lot of cryptocurrencies are. You purchase the coin and you cannot resell it. And it's like 75% of the profit from these coins goes directly to the Trump family. Directly to them. Into their bank accounts. And it's insane. But there's tons of details about this. I don't want to give all of them in this video. That it is the sort of thing that if this was any other president, they would have been impeached already and removed from office. Like, it's one of those scandals that is so breathtaking that even in the Trump era, it's shocking. Um, and I think it's something that everyone should know about and everyone should talk about. And do not put your head in the sand about this issue. If you have been putting your head in the sand about it, I have been paying attention to this story, and I've been paying attention to it for a while. I still learned things from this video. So if you are the sort of person who has been paying attention to it, still give it a watch/listen. If nothing else that you take in as far as news this week, take that hour and either watch it. You can watch it on YouTube if you search Ezra Klein Show, or you can listen to it on wherever you get your podcasts. Again, the name of the episode is The Growing Scandal of $Trump. Totally worth your time. Fucking insane, just breathtaking, wild stuff. So that's my recommendation. Really give it a check out. It's wild. Yeah. And one of the things that I keep thinking about is how this and AI explain, or could explain, you might be missing a couple pieces of information, or we might be, so much of what Donald Trump does. Like, I talked about this right at the beginning of the administration when Doge was really salient, which is like cutting all these government jobs and services in general, but the jobs part of it specifically never really felt like reducing the budget. Like that was never really the concern. Like, obviously, like the amount of money that's being spent, and the amount that's being added to the deficit with this Republican budget bill kind of puts the lie to a lot of that. But it always felt like it was more about getting rid of humans and replacing them with AI throughout the federal government, and finding new ways to link up databases throughout the federal government, which you may assume is already the case, but it's not. And you actually can't access. A lot of people, if you have access to certain databases and certain like sets of information about the American public, you're not actually allowed by regulation to access other databases about the American people, so that that information doesn't get centralized in any one department or with any one person, for privacy reasons. And so you would generally like assume that like somebody could just go and, just do a search like you can on Google, and it would go through all these databases that the government has and find all this info and, centralize it so you can just look at a file on the American people. But that's not really the case. And I think that people like, and actually the Atlantic just did a really good article about this last month called at least it's something like the beginning of the American Panopticon. And it talks a lot about this. I recommend that article. I'll put a screenshot of it up on the screen. But I think that a lot of the Doge stuff was about removing human beings and replacing them with AI chatbots. And, obviously chatbots that are maybe like provided by the AI company that Elon Musk owns, XAI. I think that really explains a lot of that. And so like when you look at those decisions that they were making, you'd be like, what the fuck? This doesn't make any sense. Why would they be like slashing the Veterans Administration and, slashing jobs from all these places that are maybe like, things that that Trump's base, supports? And the answer is, AI and, enriching themselves through AI. And I think the same is true for crypto. And I think two examples of this. One is the tariffs. I don't know that I'm smart enough or know all the information necessary to make this argument, but I think that like causing the global economy to collapse, or just causing these fluctuations in the American dollar, and just like all of this uncertainty in finance and commerce and the economy, there's opportunities for that to be benefited, or for that to benefit Trump in his crypto dealings. And I think another thing about the tariffs is that like the imposing tariffs on our allies doesn't make a lot of sense unless you remember that like our allies have laws in place, like the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act in the United States, but it's equivalent in those countries that prevent them from wheeling and dealing and influence peddling in the way that Donald Trump wants them to, which is why he loves all of these oligarchs and monarchs in the Middle East and all these other kind of authoritarian countries, because they can just give him money. They just cut him checks, and there's no one to oversee them in the same way that you have in like Canada or the EU. And one of the ways kind of around some of that is cryptocurrency, and this whole crypto scheme in general allows there to be a lot more secrecy behind who's giving him money and who's paying him off, as far as American corporations and American oligarchs and foreign governments. He can really get that direct benefit and give them exceptions to the tariffs and things like that, which is like what you see with Apple getting a lot of exceptions, or any of these companies getting exceptions to the tariffs. That's one of the issues with the tariff regimes in general, is that they encourage corruption, because if you can, pay Donald Trump enough money, you can get yourself exempted from a lot of the impacts of these tariffs. And so I think that AI and crypto explain a lot of decisions that the administration has made that don't really make a lot of sense on their face. And then the added thing of corruption, finding ways to personally benefit from all of this. I think that really, like, when you're like, why would you do this? Why would you do this? The answer, I think, 9 times out of 10 is, related to corruption, crypto, and AI, or all three.